Grief. It's something we all go through, something we all will face. Yet too many of us are facing it alone. Today, we're going to dive into not just the 5 stages of grief, but learning how to understand it better, learning how to support both ourselves and others through it, and understand the journey and how together we can work through it and lead us to a more glorious acceptance. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Women Winning Their Way. Well, welcome back to another episode of Women Winning Their Way. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation with one of my friends, Lynn Banis. So, Lynn, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It is. And, we're going to have a really powerful conversation about something that people don't like to talk about. But before we get to that, I would love to start off by asking you, the title of the show is called Women Winning Their Way. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
It means that we have to step into our power and accept the fact that we do have choices. We can make those decisions that traditionally had been kind of hidden from us, and that we need to do that in a way that shows up in the world and leaves a legacy and empowers other women.
Love that. So true, because you're right. So many times, we are hiding that power and we need to start leaning into it. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, and often we don't think we have it.
Very
but
true.
we do.
We do.
We need to claim it.
We sure do. So, Lynn, one of the things that you talk a lot about and you work with your people on and speak on is this concept of resiliency, especially through grief. And
Yes.
I talk about the idea that many of us don't lean into this and don't talk about grief. We talk about, the 5 stages of grief and do that. But I don't really think that we educate ourselves on it or really allow people the space. And sometimes the people we don't allow the space with is ourselves. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of embracing the movement and the journey through grief.
Yeah, it's so important to me to try to break down this taboo, because it seems that what happens is that your friends and family either say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And they don't reach out very often because they're afraid they'll say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And that leaves the person who is going through the grief unsupported.
Yeah.
Another big thing in our society is our businesses give us 3 days of bereavement leave. And the brain fog that sets in after you've experienced a major loss lasts at least a year. So how can you be expected to be functioning the same way you did a week ago?
Right.
And so, and also it's, again, the situation, the taboos make it really tough at work, because people that, you used to get a cup of coffee with or stop by and say, hey, how are you doing, are now often ignoring you because they don't know what to say.
Right.
So I do a lot of talks with service groups and businesses, anybody who will take the time to think about what they're doing to their employees and themselves and their families, anyone they care about. And I'll just go and do a free talk, because I think it's just so important that we think about how do we handle this at home and with the family and in the workplace.
Definitely. And, just going through the passing of my father, 3 days, you think about 3 days, that's nothing. There's so much that needs to be done. And the idea that there's, so many times right when you're in it, you're in the midst of checking off the boxes. Did we call this person? Did we cancel that? You don't even have the time to emotionally sit with the loss until several months later.
Yeah.
And then if you compound on top of it that you have small children at home or you're running a business, all of these. So I would love to just ask you, from a perspective first of the person going through grief, what are some ways that we can either communicate or ask for help? Because I think sometimes we don't even know what we need to ask for. So, what would be some advice you have first for the people going through it?
Well, the primary focus, once they get through all the legal stuff, and needs to be on caring for oneself,
Mhm.
because you can't push off the dealing with emotions, because you have to go through it. It's like you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it. You
Mhm.
have to go through it, and if you don't, it settles in and becomes a prolonged grief issue, which is mentally and physically damaging to your body.
Mhm.
So think about yourself. How are you feeling? Name those feelings so that you begin to understand them and you can talk to them and, work through. I know I'm feeling this way, and this is what I'm doing. And it's okay if I'm very sad. It's okay if I cry, those sorts of things. And, people think, well, I don't want to bother anybody.
Mhm.
I know I did that, even though I have my three girls here and they've been incredible support. It's like, well, they've got their own lives, they got their kids, but, I don't want to bother them. Bother them because they want to do something. They're feeling like they don't know what to do, they can't do anything. And so that's when people kind of give up and disappear.
Right.
So think about, what is it that you need, if you and how you need it. If you need companionship, say, I just need you to come over and sit with me. We don't have to talk about anything. I just need somebody in the house.
Mhm.
Or um I think about this. When my husband passed, I got so many containers of lasagna. I swear. I keep telling people, don't take lasagna to folks who are just beginning to grieve. The thought thinking in my mind was, come over and get some of this lasagna. I was
Mhm.
handing them casseroles every time they came
Right.
over, and finally they said, we can't eat anymore. But you know, let them know that and especially if you're alone. Now, if you have a family, those things are very welcome. But if you're alone, let them know, I just don't have an appetite. If
Mhm.
you want to bring me something, bring me a little small bowl of fruit, or some crudities, or something that I don't have to cook. I don't have to work hard for. And I can just munch on, because that's what I'm doing, is kind of grazing.
Yeah. Very
For
true,
most
because you
people,
have to think about, yeah, you bring that over, but now it's something they have to clean. Now it's something that a dish they have to return. Or often if you bring someone a big casserole dish, I could imagine somebody looking at that being like, even more alone because look at this huge amount of food. I
yeah,
have no one to share it with.
yeah,
And so I think going back to your point of it's the responsibility of both parties to ask what is it that you need, and then also for the party going through it to be like, this is what I need. Because
yeah,
sometimes I know when I went through my divorce or things like that, it was get me out of the house. I just need to get out of the house.
yeah.
you
And
know
and for mine and lots of other women and people that go through this, it's, I can't go anywhere. This is my little safe
Mhm.
place. Don't try to make me go someplace.
Right.
And and then in what to say, whatever you do as the family member, outside person, whatever, don't try to fix the person who's grieving.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of fixing, it's a matter of giving them time to rebuild. And I can remember going out to coffee with a friend and thinking, oh, this is the first time, and I don't remember how long, that I've sat across from somebody who didn't try to fix me or fill the air with platitudes that meant nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're better to just say, I'm here for you. I
Yeah.
really don't know exactly what to say or how to help you, but I am here for you.
Yeah.
And make make the effort to go sit with somebody or to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Just want you to know I care about you. Um, those things make all the difference in the world. I
Mm-hmm.
remember looking up and seeing one of my girls doing dishes, and I was so thankful. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
say anything. She just noticed they needed to be
And
put in
just
the
did it. They just
dishwasher.
took
And
care of it.
yeah, and so that's the thing. If you see something that needs to be done, just take care of it. People are so overwhelmed that they can hardly move, so there's no motivation to go do that stuff. So many people just honestly just all they want to do is go back to bed and put the covers over their head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they are. And that's the important thing. Wherever they are is where they need to be at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So don't try to push them. Don't try to fix them. And don't offer the things that you hear other people say. For instance, somebody said to me, oh, he's in a better place. And I wanted to scream. I don't want him in a better space.
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
want him right here with me. And, it's all well meaning. There's no question about that, but it is really misguided. If you're going to speak to somebody, you need to speak to them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly about themselves. I am hurting.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So
Hmm.
there's two things I want to dive into. One is I want to go back to a comment that you made that the grieving process could be a year long. I mean, it could be longer, it could be shorter, but
Longer.
we'll just go with a year. What I find is going back to talking about being there for them. I think people are really good at being there for the first few weeks and then they
Exactly.
disappear.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we talk about keep checking in with them. So,
Yes.
maybe even scheduling something once a month, once a quarter, because again, sometimes the first 90 days, they're in robot mode and the grief could
Exactly.
hit 90 days from now. And that's when nobody's around because they're on to something new.
Yeah. They're living their lives. And,
Mhm.
that makes sense given how busy we are, and that our sense of community has really broken down. Even within the church often offers a lot of support to people, but they go away too.
Mhm.
And so I think that's all really important things. I've heard of a few things that I think have been useful, or my clients have told me have been really useful. One of them that I kind of like is buy a grief bag of groceries. Small, easy to prepare, ready to prepare, put in the, right in the microwave or whatever. And if you feel like the person, doesn't want to talk or anything, leave it, ring the doorbell, put a note on it. And that is something that you could do occasionally, or if they're really big on chocolates or
Mhm.
fruit or
Right.
whatever, small amounts. Remember that, unless they have a family.
Mhm.
But those things are really appreciated.
Yeah.
And the I think setting up a monthly, my sister-in-law, we do that, and she lost, my brother passed 6 months before my husband, so we're kind of going through the same thing at the same time
Mhm.
when that happened. And so we once a month we call each other and just chat, and sometimes more than that, but for sure once a
Right.
month.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I'm trying to do is be more thoughtful about some of the other important dates, such as, when is their anniversary? Because thinking, again,
Yes.
we're talking a lot about the passing of a loved one. And, it was my parents' anniversary. It was 2 weeks after the passing of my father. That was, going to be a big one. And just knowing and just trying to think of these, it could be somebody who, just went through a divorce and it could be their
Exactly.
would have been wedding anniversary and just being there again for them. and looking
Yes.
at that. So I think
Yeah.
just, being more cognizant and knowing that it's not a 3-day bereavement. It's could
Oh
be
boy.
a long time. And so don't just disappear, make sure you're still showing up for them. Hey, ladies, success isn't one size fits all, and neither should your health care. If you're suffering from brain fog, overall exhaustion, and stubborn weight gain, it's not just stress, it's your body talking to you. And we need to start listening. At Telehealth for Her, you can get concierge level training and guidance to help you learn to care for your health at the highest possible level. Their customly designed framework is going to walk you through how you can manage your health and start showing up as the highest and best version of yourself. As professional women, we have to make sure we're showing up strong for all the demands that face us each and every day. So visit telehealthforher.com today and book your Synergy consultation so that you can gain control back and have expertly guided direction and care to help you take control back of your health and your performance. Reach out to them today. Are you a high achieving individual and just not getting the results that you want? Do you feel like you're showing up and putting in all the effort, but just not getting traction? Well, if you can say yes to any of those things, the Clarity Collective might be your answer. I'm Clara Capano, and the Clarity Collective is my personalized mastermind group that is designed to help high performing professionals get to the next level and to do it in a way that is going to bring long-term sustainable success. You see, you can't attain success on your own. This collective is all designed to give you the quality training, guidance, education, and tools that you need to achieve your goals. In the collective, we provide live monthly masterclasses taught by experts in their chosen field. In the collective, it is all about growing and scaling your business with purpose and intention. In addition, you get access to an exclusive training portal. You get a live monthly hot seat session where you can come in and ask for help with whatever challenges you have, and the members of the collective are gonna work to help you. You also have the ability to network and collaborative with other high performing, ambitious professionals just like you. So if you are looking to get out of the fog and to get real traction towards your goals, check out the Clarity Collective. When you visit, just enter code collective at checkout and you can get access to all of this amazing training for less than $1 a day. I'm Clara Capano, and come and join me in the Clarity Collective.
The holidays are tough. And I know for the first Thanksgiving and Easter and Christmas, I couldn't do it. I couldn't, well, we did Christmas, but it was, I said, guys, I cannot fix a big dinner and sit there and see that empty chair. I just can't.
Right.
So we've changed our traditions around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's turned out that the kids have been able to help create the new traditions, and everybody's having an absolute blast.
Right.
But it's important to honor that person. And what I've done is I give everybody a small mason jar about 3 weeks before the holiday or his birthday or whatever. And I say, think about some fun times and some silly things this person said or important things that they told you that you learned for whatever. Write it down, put the slip of paper in the jar and bring it to Christmas. And then we all sat around and everybody pulled something out of their jar and we got to laughing. And I mean, it was so therapeutic that we continued doing it because it just keeps that memory
Right.
alive. And it's allowed the children to remember they lost 2 grandfathers within a month. So it helps them remember what grandpa was like.
Definitely. And I like this idea of creating new traditions. Also, I would encourage people to maybe think outside the box. And here's what I mean by that. When I went through my divorce, I had a lot of the first holidays coming up. And people were like, well, come over here. So, if Nicholas was with his dad, say for 4th of July, they'd be like, come and celebrate 4th of July with us. And I'm like, I don't want to be around a family. I don't want to be around a happy family right now. It was too painful. But what I would
Mhm.
have loved is, you know what? Do you want to go for a walk in the morning? Or something. So
Yeah,
again, I think sometimes it's just that extra little bit of thoughtfulness of going back to what do you need?
exactly.
You're welcome here. If that's not what you need, what do you need? And trying to make the space for them, because sometimes you inviting them to come along only exasperates the pain they're going through.
Exactly. And as the griever, you need to feel free to say, I cannot do that
Yeah. Mm,
today. I just can't do it today. And it's okay if remember, somebody else's reaction is theirs,
exactly.
not yours.
Mhm.
And you have to set boundaries that protect you so that you can get better, that
Right.
you can get through it.
And see, that was something I don't think I did a good job of. I would just decline, but I should have spoke up more to say, no, this is what I do need. So I think that that's a really good reminder. Another thing I really want to talk about is the idea that I don't think we can define what grief is. And here's what I mean by that. Um, we have the death of a loved one, but you could also have the passing of a pet, a divorce, a loss of a job, a loss of a best friend, not in a death, but maybe they've moved away. And I think sometimes people prejudge. If they don't have a pet, can't you just get over the death of your pet? It's like they
Yeah,
don't.
and it's
And
just a dog or just a
exactly.
cat.
And I
Yeah.
think we have to be very cautious to, again, not write the script for them. So, what are some thoughts that you have around that?
I think this is so important too, because anything, any kind of loss sets off a trauma and grief response in a person. And it's not up to us to judge how important that thing was. It could be, well, think about the empty nesters.
Hmm.
That's a big change. And anytime we go through significant change that impacts our self identity, who we are, or how we live. I mean, think about since COVID, the changes have been immense. My belief is that every single one of us is grieving for the way we used to live. And half the time people don't realize that. And then everybody wonders, well, why are we so stressed?
Right.
We're not dealing with it and we're not talking about it. And, the loss of our past is a big deal.
Hmm.
So giving people the space to be who they are and where they are is really huge. And I know so many of them are fixers. We want to fix, we want to make it better.
Right.
But you
We want to be
can't.
the hero. We want to go in there because, again, we care about them and we want them to be happy again.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
I know I've heard children say, well, where's my mom? Which that hurts the mother.
Hmm.
She's grieving, and then the kid's going, but I want you back. And it's like,
Hmm.
I can't get there right now.
Hmm.
Don't know whether I ever will be the same.
Right. Ugh, so much. So talk about now, just, you work with a lot of people going through this, and I know that you have, some processes that you do. Anything that you can share with our listeners to maybe kind of help guide them if they're in a moment right now?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things is to realize that those 5 stages are not the end of grief.
Mm.
And they have been poo-pooed because Kubler-Ross said, they're linear, and they're not linear at all. And you could be in several stages at one time. Just understand that it's one step forward, maybe 2 steps, 3 steps, a big leap, all these
Mhm.
sorts of things happen. And then you think you're okay, and this huge wave of grief comes crashing down on you out of nowhere, And you just lose it, which, you think, well, what's the matter with me? Nothing's wrong with you. These things get triggered, and you don't always know what the trigger is going to be.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's walking past a picture. Sometimes it's, I was at a networking group, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a guy walk in, and I thought he looked like my husband, and that I lost it.
Mhm.
And those things, they just come along, and you don't know when they're coming.
Right.
I try to help people learn to expect it to happen at some time and be okay with it, because you can't steel yourself like, I'm not going anywhere because I don't want this
Mhm.
to happen. It just is. And getting through the process is huge. As I said, grief is not over when you get to the point where you are beginning to be fairly good at managing your emotions. You're not exploding in tears
Mhm.
all the time in the grocery store line or whatever. But that's when I step in, because my belief is we aren't doing people a favor by leaving them there. We need to help them work through who they are now.
Yeah.
Their beliefs may have changed some, at least in order. What are they? Are they aligned with your desires? And so we work on all those things, all sorts of neuro stuff to get the brain back where it needs to be.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I do that I don't know of anybody that does is that I take a really deep dive into the person when they're in flow,
Mm.
and we look at the very very small, like I learn by, whether it's reading, hearing,
Mhm.
writing, whatever. And then we look at, well, what's the environment like that's supporting you when you're in flow? And all of that information is gathered. And at that point, we can start talking about, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? What do you
Mhm.
want to do? And we can create that. We create a roadmap and actually move into that next chapter, which is the healing piece of it.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. I like thinking about, the environment that you're in, and is it helping you, get back into your natural flow of the flow of where you want to be? Because I
Yeah.
think also sometimes people, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but they might hang on to the grief because they feel guilty being happy again.
Yes, that's a big thing, and those are the self-limiting beliefs that need to be
Mhm.
addressed. And that's kind of hard to do by yourself, because you don't see what you're saying and doing. I had a client say, well, I'm upset because my friend was supposed to call me on Saturday and she didn't. I guess she doesn't like me anymore. And I looked at her and I said, oh, so if I don't call you when I say I'm going to, I don't like you? Oh, well, so we make these things up, we make these stories up in our mind, or we awfulize, or we try to read minds,
Right.
and we don't realize we're doing that. But all of those things are going on in any normal human being all the time.
Yeah.
So being able to recognize that we're doing that to ourselves and change what we're saying to ourselves into something that is supportive and
Mhm.
enabling is a huge step.
So true. So true. Well, Lynn, this has been an amazing conversation because I know so many people are going through things. Like you said, we're coming out still, even though it's been almost 5 years, we're still coming out of a very challenging time. People are growing in their identities, they're having losses of people. And I think we cannot minimize grief, and it's something we need to start talking about. We need to be more open, we need to be more honest about it, and what you're doing is guiding people through these times, and it's just such a beautiful thing. So I would love to ask you, what is something that you're working on now? What is next for Lynn?
I'm just, there's a couple things that are so important to me. One of them is helping women, and another is kids. And so I have joined the board of a group called You Are My Light Foundation, which is working to build housing and medical facilities for folks that have been rescued from human trafficking. And the thing that I love about it that kind of fits right in with what I do is we are taking people from the point where they've they've been rescued and they've had some attention paid to them by psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, those sorts of things. But then they're let go and they often fall back into the same mold because they don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they've learned. And so we, with You Are My Light, are working to help them totally recover, and then they can move back into society and live a life that is free and of their choice.
Yeah. I think
So this
that's
is a
so
huge
in
thing.
alignment with what you talked about with the grieving process, because what you're saying is they get the help on the front end, but then where do we go from there? Whereas this is
Exactly.
really helping to encompass more of the journey of getting them back to
Yeah.
wholeness.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I have a very strong belief that everybody deserves a life they can love. And whatever we can do to help somebody else achieve that makes all of us better, lifts all of us.
Absolutely. And I know that there is going to be a summit. This is going to be airing at the beginning of April in 2025. And I know that there is a summit coming up where you're going to be having 3 days of speakers. I'm going to be one of the speakers there as well, so that we can go and help raise funds for You Are My Light. So we'll put all of the information and your link to get registered in the show notes so that we can
Awesome.
hopefully drive more people to that.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. Let me just drop a couple statistics that people really don't realize. 25 million people in the US are trafficked, and a lot of those are children.
Mm-hmm.
Of the children, 40% are trafficked by their parents. Their family is involved, and it's that just my stomach just hurts every time I think about that.
I know.
People need to understand that the folks that do this are so good at hiding what they're doing that it could be happening right under your nose. And we have to get more observant and pay more attention and do more for these people because their lives are totally ruined.
Absolutely. And just how horrific to have a place, your home, that should be a sanctuary. It should be a safe haven. I mean, that's where you should feel the most safe, is at your home.
Right.
And turning that, upside down and to a place. And I know I had another guest on my show about a month ago, and she was trafficked by her husband.
Yeah.
And it's happening more than we think. And you're right. We have to open our eyes more and be more observant. And so growing the awareness is the first step.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely it is. And the sad thing is that many of the people that are trafficked think it's their fault. They've done something that they deserve this, or they don't even realize that's what's happening.
True.
So it's just such an important thing for us to do, all
Absolutely.
of us.
So, well, thank you. Thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for sharing that. And again, just shedding light on all the things that you do. So I have one final question before we say goodbye. And that is, now sitting where you sit today with all the lessons that you've learned up to this point in time, how do you define success for yourself now?
My success lies in my clients. When I see that light go off, when I see them step out of the shroud of grief and into the light, that's beyond success. That is just so thrilling.
So beautiful. Well, Lynn, thank you so much. Again, you are a light that is helping to guide others to find their light. And that is no small feat, and that is no small thing. So I honor you, and I'm so grateful to know you and just appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts with us today. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think Lynn really brought some strong aha moments. Some of the things that came up for me is really learning not to have judgment on others who are going through their own grief. It is their grief. And who are we to judge? Who are we to say they should be over this by now? Let's have some more compassion. Let's live in empathy and let's be there for them. I think trying not to fix it, I tend to be a fixer and I want my people to be happy. I want them to be whole again. I just want them to laugh again. But that's what I want. And this is not about what we want. This is about what it is that they need. So I think when you're on the outside, really focus more on what is it that they need and show up in that way. And for those of you going through grief, don't minimize your grief. Your grief is your own. I think so many times we don't want to bother people with it. We think, oh, they have their own life going on. They have their own things. Or we may feel, why am I not over this by now? Don't hide. Don't minimize your grief. Speak up. Ask for what you need. Again, this doesn't mean that you stand on the corner with a megaphone and tell everybody, but go to your circle, create that environment, and don't have shame in grief. Tell people, I'm hurting right now. That was a trigger for me. That really unlocked something. Can you just come be with me right now? Can you watch a movie with me? Can you go for a walk with me? Whatever it is, make sure you are speaking up because they want to help you. They don't know how. And we have to make sure we are taking our own personal responsibility. So understand there's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with grief. It is a human process. So allow yourself to be human. I know we all are going through moments today, tomorrow. It could have been several months ago. So I ask that you take this episode and you share it with others so that they can bookmark this and make sure that they are showing themselves some light and some grace on their own journeys. I'm Clara Capano. Thank you for being here for another episode of Women Winning Their Way.